This is another continuation of Psmac formation, possibly part 4, and how tumors try to degrade or destabilize the Psmac. Because if the Psmac forms, then it's pretty much the end of the tumor. So a quick recap on how tumors do that is that they like to receive exosomes if the lysosomes do not degrade the exosomes. So tumors will try to prevent lysosomes from degrading the exosomes by tumors load the lysosomes with cholesterol. Therefore, the lysosome becomes too rigid and dysfunctional and cannot degrade the exosomes. That way, the tumor receives the exosomes. In the exosomes are loaded with PDL1, especially with other things. But in this video, I'm just going to focus on PDL1. And as a result, the tumor uses the PDL1 to destabilize the Psmac as an immune evasion tactic. So basically, the T cells have receptors for PDL1. So the tumor uses the PDL1 from the exosomes to bind onto the T cell receptors as a way to destabilize the Psmac. Okay, now, but before I go to PDL1, I'm going to talk about first the CD27, CD70 axis and how two specific beans can help out. So if that axis continues, that will lead to a chronic ongoing NFKB. That NFKB ongoing can help PDL1, and also ongoing NFKB can also destabilize the Psmac. Okay, so the first bean here is going to be Pinto beans. So it has phytochemicals such as camperol and ferulic acid. That has an impact on the CD27, CD70 axis by improving lipid raft fluidity. Because CD70 thrives on lipid raft rigidity, but instead those rafts are going to be fluid, CD70 less likely to form high-density clusters to be the effect, limiting prolonged CD27 on the immune cell being overstimulated. Because if that happens, then NFKB will be chronic, and then that NFKB will destabilize the Psmac. And another good bean here before I move on to PDL1 is Great Northern beans. So it has phytochemicals such as saponins, low anthocyanins, reduces membrane cholesterol. So possibly this could affect the lysosome, because if the lysosome is packed or loaded with cholesterol, which is what the tumor does, then the lysosomes can't reduce or can't degrade the exosomes, and then the tumors receive the exosomes, which is not a good situation. So Great Northern beans, they lower the surface density of raft anchored ligands. So that's critical, and that because that impacts the CD70, CD27 axis, reduced overpresentation of CD70 in rigid rafts. If the rafts are rigid, it's better that they're fluid. So therefore, a decreasing the sustainment of CD27 engagement, because if the CD27 engages with the CD70, then that's NFKB, and then the Psmac is going to be destabilized, which is what the tumor is trying to do. Okay, so quick recap on beans. So Pinto beans, better suited for chronic CD7-driven exhaustion to stop the exhaustion, especially in the tumor microenvironment. And then Great Northern beans, gentle, support for membrane homeostasis, especially if cholesterol is loaded onto the lysosome, the lysosomal membrane, which is what tumors do. And Great Northern beans, they do have an effect on lowering a lysosomal membrane cholesterol. So Great Northern beans are possibly competes with pinto beans when it comes to number 1. Okay, now on to PDL1. It's expressed on tumor cells, and it actually binds to PD1 on the T cell, which is what I'm trying to stop here. And as a result, T cells are switched off or exhausted, and then tumor evades immunity or immune attack. So the first food here that can modulate the expression and immune tone of PDL1 is oranges. Oranges contain vitamin C, also important flavonoids such as hesperidin and naringenin, including polyphenols. Okay. PDL1 is often upregulated by reactive oxygen species-driven programs, such as STAT3 and NFKB. But flavonoids in oranges can downregulate uh, STAT3 and NFKB, therefore no PDL1 upregulated, because tumors use PDL1 to destabilize the Psmac, because tumors know that the Psmac is the end of the tumor. So as a result of oranges, lowers how much PDL1 a tumor displays, but modestly, but it's better than nothing, especially if oranges are consumed every single day. Oranges are also rather affordable as well. Also, oranges have an effect on PD1, which is on the immune cell side. So that the citrus in oranges reduces chronic inflammation, leading to less PD1 upregulation or showing on the immune cell. Therefore, less T cell exhaustion, because if there is no PD1 showing or upregulated, then the PDL1 on the tumor side can't bind onto the PD1. Therefore, the T cells won't get exhausted, which is critical to have T cells to attack cancer cells. Okay, now a side note on oranges is that oranges, they can't or they do not reverse advanced immune evasion on their own. Which is why it's important to prevent the advanced immune evasion from happening in the first place. A good way is by supporting the lysosomal membrane to prevent it from becoming peroxidized, such as to prevent the peroxidation, resveratrol and magnesium. Magnesium is critical for the lysosomal membrane to stay repaired. Also, what could help support magnesium levels is estrogen levels, because estrogen supports the magnesium transporter. To avoid low estrogen, excessive or high zinc, leading to high testosterone, because excessive testosterone can lower estrogen, therefore the magnesium levels are also going to go down. Okay, so quick recap to close off the video. Pinto beans, they reduce the CD27, CD70 axis between a tumor and an immune cell, reducing chances of T cell exhaustion. Pineapples also help with that by cleaving the adhesion molecules that keep the CD27, CD70 connected. Also, great northern beans, critical to reduce cholesterol loading into the lysosomes. So, because that's what tumors try to do, they try to load up the lysosome with cholesterol so that the lysosome cannot degrade the exosome. So green beans, or great northern beans are especially important so that the tumors do not receive the exosomes. Because if they do, then the tumors can wreak a lot of havoc once they get the exosomes. Okay, also oranges reduce PD1 expression on the immune cell, therefore less likely for a T cell exhaustion if the PD1 is hidden or downregulated, so that the PDL1 on the tumor cannot bind to the PD1 on the immune cell. Also, oranges and their flavonoids, they decrease the very pathways that upregulate PDL1, which are STAT3 and NFKB. Also, NFKB can be ongoing if the CD27, CD70 axis or is a continuing, which is why pinto beans are a good source to stop that connection. So that's it for the video. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.